Welcome back to another video, and in this video we're going to be continuing on with our macOS development with AppKit tutorial series, and in this particular tutorial we are going to be taking a look at how we can create more than one window in our macOS applications. Now, before we begin the actual coding part of it, we have to understand how macOS windows are, like how the process of creating a window is done. So in our storyboard, if you open up your storyboard, what you'll see, is there will be a window controller. Now this window controller has an NS window inside of it. And then that NS window has a view controller inside of it. And that is how the storyboard constructs our windows. It gives it a window controller, it gives it a window, and then it gives the window a view controller or view, depending on how you want to do it. However, it is important to note that putting your NS window in a view in a window controller isn't technically necessary. You could leave out the NS window controller you could leave that out entirely and just use NS window and it would work just fine. As we go through this video, I will kind of talk you through how you might do both. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let's open up Xcode. And what we have this far is I have a window, a single window, our main window, that has a view controller with a button in the center. This button will open up a window, and the window that gets opened up will have a random view controller between red, green, and blue controllers. Now, this is not something you'll be doing at all, really, a random view controller, but this does show you, the point of this video is to show you how you can create a window and then assign it a view controller. The randomized view controller is to just demonstrate more visually that it is in fact working how we intend it to work. All right? So, in our open window method here that I have, now this open window method takes in a title, which is a string. It takes in the content view controller, which is of type NS view controller. It takes in the width and the height of the window as well. So we know what the width and height of our window should be. Alright, so to create the NS window, we need to do the following. We'll call it window, equals NS window. And then we want the initializer with the content rect. Alright, so the first parameter here is going to be an NS rect. Excuse me. This is what we use to define the size of our window's content. And this is where the width and height will come in. So we will say NSRect. And NSRect will take in 4 parameters, an X, Y, width, and height. The X and Y can be left at 0. And Y can also be set to 0. So X and Y are 0. Width, we will give it our width. And then height, we will give it our height. Now, the next thing that we need to do inside of our initializer for NS window is we need to apply what's called a style mask. And this can be a single value or it can be an array of values. I'm going to use an array of values here. We want this to be closable. We want this to be miniaturizable. And we want this to be titled. So this window should have a title. Now, closable means that the close button, the red traffic light at the top of every window, that will be enabled, that we can use that. And then for miniaturizable, that allows for the minimize button, the yellow traffic light to be enabled. We can minimize it. And then titled just allows our window to have a title. Now for backing, we will use deferred, or not deferred. We will use buffered. So dot buffered. Now, as the inline documentation suggests, this will essentially do all of the drawing inside of a buffer, and then that buffer will get flushed out to the screen for display. Buffered is usually your safest bet in terms of what you should use in this particular case. And then defer, we're just going to set to false. You could set that to true if you wanted to, but we're going to set it to false. All right, cool. Next, we need to set the title for the window. So window.title equals title. And then window.content view controller will be set to content view controller, like that. And then if we want our window to appear in the center of the screen when we summon it, we will say window.center, like that. So that way, whenever our window is summoned, it will be shown in the center of our screen. Now, if you wanted to show the window as is without being wrapped in a window controller, you can say window.make key and order front. Now, this will make the window not only the key window, as in the window that is currently accepting keyboard input, but it will also bring this window to the front. Now, as for the sender can be set to nil. You don't need to worry about that. Let's go ahead and save this and run our code. So far, so good. It works. Now, the open new window button isn't doing anything at the moment. And that is because we haven't called open window in our open window button clicked method here. All right. So let's go ahead and call open window, and we'll give it a string of random controller. Content view controller will be set to random controller. Now the width will set to 800 and the height to 600, like that. So save it, run it. we have a successful build. And here we go. So we can see our application here. Let's open a new window. And we can see here our random controller is right there. It's open. We can close it. And you can see the command W to close the window itself will cause the app to crash. I am frankly unsure why that happens. So, one way that I have found that this will not crash when you do Command W is if you wrap it in a window controller. So, let's go ahead and wrap this window in an NS window controller. So instead of making the window key in front, we will now create a NS window controller. So let controller equals NS window controller. In its initializer, we will pass in an NS window object. So we'll pass it our window. And then in here, we'll say controller dot and then we already have our title set for our window. All right. And then let's take a look at some of the properties of our NS window controller so we can kind of get an idea of how this might work. So show window allows us to show a window. The window property gets the window that belongs to this controller. Close will close the window. We can set the content view controller of our window controller. You can set the document. You can get whether or not the window is loaded, all of that stuff. But we are going to say, show window, and then we'll set the sender to nil, like that, because we don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and run our code again. We have a successful build. And here is our window. You can see, again, the color of our main windows changed. When we open a new window, there's our random controller. But let's go ahead and do Command W. Now the app doesn't crash. So I recommend using the NS window controller because that will just make your life just a little bit easier. We can open a new window, and there we go. We can open another new window, and we can just open as many windows as we need to. All right. Now let's go ahead and try, instead of setting the content view controller on the window, what we can do is we can say controller dot content view controller equal to random equals it should be okay, it needs to be content view controller. That's right. It'll be content view controller, like that. We'll save our code again. We have a successful build. Here's our main window. We open a new window, and we can see we get a random controller. This time it's the blue controller. We can close that. Try again. Try again. Try again. Try again. And you get the idea. We can open as many of these windows as we would like. But these are just two of the ways that you can open new windows in your macOS application. You can use an interface builder file, so you can use a storyboard to create new windows and all that sort of stuff, but this series is emphasizing programmatic user interface techniques. So that's what we're emphasizing here, is how we can programmatically open windows in our applications, and then you can manage them however you see fit. Alright guys, so that pretty much does it for this video on how we can create multiple windows in our macOS applications programmatically without storyboards. Thank you all so very much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.